Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Travel and Tourism Podcast, my first season. My guest today worked for Club Med from 1994 to 1998. His first season was in Club Med Ixtapa as a Petit Club G.O, and in his time in Club Med, he was also a circus, sailing, windsurfing, waterski, and ski instructor. He did it all. In high school, he was a pole vaulter and nationally ranked springboard diver, and he is related to an Emmy Award and Academy Award winning actress. So you know me and celebrities, I got to ask him about that. From Fort Collins, Colorado, but now living in Florida, please help me welcome Dan Bittle. Hey, Dan the man, Dan the tan, how are you, sir?
Hey, Greg, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm excited. It's my first experience being part of a podcast and actually even really listening to podcasts. I don't know if I'm aging myself, but I'm new to listening to podcasts. So I'm kind of excited to be part of one. You might be introing me into listening to more as I go.
Well, yeah, I think I'm flattered because I think my first season is the first podcast you ever listened to. Is that right?
Yeah, 100% the first podcast I've ever listened to. And I went through it after you and I had our initial talk and you got me on board to come and be on here and basically searched out some of my dear friends and the people that I had worked with over my 4 years at Club Med and wanted to hear what they had to say to see if my name came up, which, usually it's not in a good sentence. So I didn't come up a lot.
Well, thank you for, making my first season your first podcast, and take that, Joe Rogan. Just kidding. All right. So I mentioned, you had quite the intro. Yeah, I think I go to high school a little bit. So pole vaulter, nationally ranked springboard diver, but I believe the being a springboard diver makes you our first guest in like 3.5 years that actually did that. And all I really know about springboard diving was, it was introduced in the 1908 Olympics in London. You have 4 types of dives: straight, pike, tuck, and free. But I really want to know, did you do the triple Lindy? Yes or no?
I did not do the triple Lindy, but it's a great movie. Great movie.
Thank you. I knew you would know that movie. Rodney Dangerfield, classic.
Yes.
Back to School.
Back to School.
But so how do you know that you're good at, I suppose you have to have some kind of aerial awareness, right? So how did you know you were good at flips and tucks and all that? Does that just come to you as a kid?
Got thrust into it, actually, Greg. My PE teacher in high school was the diving coach, and he was teaching different sports, new sports that weren't normally part of PE, badminton being one of them. I picked up the game very quickly, and he asked me if I pick up sports quickly, and I told him yes. And he said, "Why don't you come up for the diving team?" And I said, "I don't know how to scuba." And he said, no, it's not that. It's like the Olympic diving, part of the swim team. He said, "You're too short to play basketball and you're too light to wrestle." At the time in high school, I was about 145 pounds and I'm still only 5'10". So I said, all right, I'll come give it a try. And that's how I got into it. He did a great job of really encouraging us to learn as much as we could quickly by threatening that we wouldn't make the team if we didn't learn fast. And so I learned quickly and became very good at it.
Okay. And we'll get into it. We're not there yet, but you kind of took these skills and then put them in the air when you became a circus G.O, but we're not going to spoil this part yet. We're going to get there. And I also mentioned that you're kind of related there to Hollywood royalty because, you're related to someone who won Oscar and Emmys. Do you mind telling our listeners who you're related to?
Yeah, Holly Hunter is my cousin. So my mom's dad, his sister, her daughter is Holly Hunter. And so at all of our family reunions when I was growing up all the way through high school, I got to hang out with Holly Hunter before I even really knew she was an actress. She's actually, most people don't know this, she won her Academy Award in the movie The Piano. She is a classically trained pianist. She went to Juilliard for piano. So
Really?
that was her original start. And then she got pulled into acting.
Oh, okay. I did not know she played. Wow. Okay.
So she played all the piano bits in that movie.
Okay. So that was really her.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting. Very nice. Very nice.
And she's a lot shorter than you think. I haven't met a lot of celebrities, but like I'm only 5'10", and if she came up to just below my shoulder, that's probably given her an inch or two. So it's really surprising, when you see her on screen, she looks like she's about the same height as everybody else, but it was pretty neat to see how tiny she is.
Okay. And right before we get into the Club Med part, I'm going to give you some true or false, and you just tell me one word answers, okay?
Sounds
true
good.
True or false? You taught English in Thailand with a German instructor.
True.
True or false? You actually met Bill Murray at a golf tournament.
True.
All right, last one. True or false? Your grandfather was a Thunderbird in the U.S. Air Force.
That's true. He's the original Thunderbird, the one who started him.
Really?
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Wow, excellent. Excellent.
Those were easy.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm telling you, this is unique, and very, very interesting facts. I thought our listeners should know, and they'll probably want to know, basically, like, I ask people, take me back to like how you originally found out about Club Med. Were you a GM? Did you see an ad in the paper? Like, how did you first find out about it?
Fantastic question. I knew nothing about Club Med. Knew nothing about vacation resorts, all inclusives. Grew up in Colorado, and most of our vacations were camping and hiking. I went to college at Arizona State University, and in my last semester, a good friend of mine that was in the same program as I was, she had gone and worked for Club Med, and I got a postcard from her, and she said, "I work for this great company, living on a beach. It's called Club Med. You should apply." So she was in Sandpiper, so she actually left her phone number on there. So I gave her a call, and she told me to call this lady Jane Miller, who was doing the hiring, and so that's how it all started.
All right. So you basically had a telephone interview, right? You didn't have to go anywhere or fly anywhere and do an in-person interview, right?
That's correct. It was quick. She sent me Jane's phone number, and I had literally just graduated from college, probably the day before I got that postcard. And so I just picked up the phone to call Jane, not knowing, I was just going to talk and learn what Club Med was about, what my friend was telling me. And Jane and I talked about Arizona State University, which is where I went. She also went there. And so we spent maybe 45 minutes talking about that, and a little bit like what you've talked about here, my life prior to college and up through college. And she said, "Well, you sound like someone we would love to have working at Club Med. When can you leave?" And she said, "We'd like you to work at Club Med. Do you have a passport?" And I said, "I sure do." And she said, "All right, I'm going to overnight you a plane ticket. You're leaving tomorrow and you're going to Ixtapa."
Because she knew you were from the number one ranked party school in the USA, she knew you could handle the Club Med, workload, right? Because
I believe that was it. Okay. The Arizona State talk was much deeper than anything. We talked for a while about Arizona State.
Okay. Nice.
And my availability to leave the next day, I think that was also enticing.
Yeah. So since you didn't really know about the jobs, you were just happy to do whatever, right? Like, I mean, they always need people in mini club and petit club, but you were probably just happy to get a foot in the door, right? I'm guessing.
I felt a bit like Van Wilder. I didn't want to quit college. I wanted to keep going, but they told me I had to graduate. So for me, it was just an extension of that. It sounded like, hey, you get to go and have some more fun and keep on going.
Okay, yeah, and you and I have similar stories in that we were told to dress a certain way on the plane, and we thought this was perfectly normal because we both started in 1994. We were both told to basically wear suits, right? Like shirt and tie, dress pants, right?
Well, I was actually not instructed to do that. So for me, I didn't ask any of the right questions, right? It was an interview mostly about life and me and not about Club Med. And when Jane said, "You're leaving tomorrow, we're sending you a ticket," she said, "In your ticket pack, you'll have a list of what to bring." And it was very vague, just, a red shirt, a blue shirt, some shorts, a toothbrush, that kind of thing. So I wasn't quite sure, but she told me, she said, "Your boss will be meeting you at the airport." So I thought, okay, I don't know if I've really had an interview yet. I might be interviewing once I arrive in Ixtapa. So I put on a suit, and I was very excited for this job and wanted to be straight laced and win the job, even though I didn't know what the job was yet. I wasn't told what I was interviewing for. I was just told I was going to go there. Jane knew I went to school to be a PE teacher. So I thought maybe it either had to do with kids or had to do with sports. So I was kind of excited in that way. And my friend Dawn, who had told me about Club Med, was also in the same program I was. So I had an idea what I might do, but wasn't sure. So on this airplane ride, I flew not first class, just regular, and there was a group of people behind me that were partying, having a great time. I really wanted to join them, but I needed to stay focused, right? And then we had a layover in Mexico City, and that was about a 6-hour layover. And this same group of people that were on my first flight were all partying in the bar, and I was reading a book, sitting in the lounge area, just straight laced. And then we all got on the same small airplane to arrive to Ixtapa. And I realized these were all GOs as well. And I missed out on the last 12 hours of fun with these guys. And my boss actually did meet me at the airport, standing there with a sign that said Club Med, had a drink in one hand, wearing shorts and a t-shirt. So I instantly felt like I was overdressed and was a little nervous about it, but I was welcomed right away and fit right in from day one.
Okay. All right. What do you remember about arriving to the village, that first day, that first week? Were you like all wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, nervous?
I was a bit nervous, Greg, not knowing what I was going for. So, and not really having been to an island that much. I had done some traveling as a kid to visit my father. My parents are divorced. And so I'd done some traveling, but never on a vacation type thing. So I wasn't quite sure what to expect. So I was really, really excited to see what was Club Med, what was a village, who were the people I'm working for. So I think there was a lot of nervousness, but a lot of excitement too.
Yeah. So you're at Ixtapa for 3 months. I mean, I know you start, Petit Club, Mini Club, but you eventually switch to trapeze. Is this right? Like circus?
Yeah, that's actually a funny story. So when you're doing the Petit Club, you're working with the kids and they're half day shifts. Very unique at Club Med compared to what I was used to later in life where it was full day shifts and 7 days a week. But we had half day shifts. So on our half afternoon off or our morning off, we could go and do the other activities. And I was just drawn to the trapeze. The guys were great. Paul, Steve, and Steen were the trapeze instructors. I went every day. And after about 3 or 4 weeks in the Petit Club, Jane actually visited Ixtapa, Jane Miller, the one who hired me. And the trapeze guys said, hey, Dan wants to be a Circus G.O. And Jane said, well, can you do a flip? And so right there in front of her, I just did a standing backflip because of my background. And she said, all right, you're now a Circus G.O. And that was how I transitioned.
Okay. But did something interesting, like did you discover something about yourself while doing trapeze? Was it
Yes, in Ixtapa, not so much. So since I was training there, I spent 3 months in Ixtapa training. So the trapeze is very high if you've seen a circus trapeze. And so most of my training was on the ground or in safety lines because I was very new to the sport.
Okay.
My second village, I moved to Sandpiper as a Circus G.O. And once I was a full-on Circus G.O. and not training and learning, I quickly became aware that I am deadly afraid of heights. So this was not the right sport for me.
Okay, I really don't mean to laugh, but I've never heard this before. Okay, but I find it interesting because you were a springboard diver, not a high diver. Then you wouldn't have discovered this. So it actually was at Club Med where you realized you didn't like heights.
Club Med where I discovered it. Yeah, the diving I did in high school was on the 1 meter platform, or the 1 meter springboard. I did do pole vaulting, but I was such a tiny person. If I got 10 feet in the air, that was a big one. So for me, I never realized I was afraid of heights until the first time I had to fly out of lines or catch somebody who was flying. And I instantly got petrified and it became scary instead of fun. And so I had asked if I could move to something else.
Okay, excellent. All right. Now, while at Ixtapa, it was a short 3 months. It's not often you hear a story about a luggage truck catching fire. Sorry. So I guess, and you're probably thinking, again, this is a normal first season, right? All the trucks catch fire. Okay.
Again, a new experience for me because I hadn't been on a vacation like this. And so what happens at Club Med is the guests all arrive on charter flights or multiple flights come in at the same time. So there's buses that pick the guests up and bring them to the village. While at the same time, the GOs are collecting their luggage, they're recognizing their luggage at the airport, and we're loading them onto this big, huge open truck with big sidewalls. And then the GOs basically hang on the outside of the truck, interlocking our arms over the luggage to make sure none of it falls out while we drive the couple miles to the Club Med. So that's how we brought the luggage to the resorts. They didn't go into the buses with the GMs. And one week I actually wasn't on the luggage truck, but I heard from somebody else that somehow that luggage truck caught on fire and everybody's luggage burned.
Okay, yeah, probably one of the worst things that could happen to a GM in a village, right? Like
one of the worst things, but we knew who they were instantly because they were the only people wearing Club Med gear 24/7, right? Club Med did them right. They gave them all the stuff they needed from the boutique. But imagine every bit of clothes you have says Club Med on it because you got it from the Club Med boutique as we replaced their burned luggage. So it kind of funny for us, but not so much for the GMs.
Hey, sign me up. If I could wear a Club Med boutique Pario all day long, sign me up, Okay, those things were great.
There you go.
All right, so we get to Sandpiper. You do a full season here, trapeze, then water ski, but I guess they're going to slowly put you in shows now that they know they got you for a full season. So were you like an expert dancer back home in Arizona? Like, were you ballroom?
Not at all. And still to this day, I do not like dancing. The stage was frightening to me. I got to see people on stage in Ixtapa and thought, this is not for me. But when I got to Sandpiper, Graham Maxwell was the choreographer, and I think he sought us out. He came right to us and said, you'll be in my shows, and here's when we rehearse, and off you go. I was really afraid and very nervous the first couple times, especially going through rehearsals. but I quickly learned that, a lot of these shows, you're putting a costume on, you're playing a different character. And so it quickly became fun to me because I wasn't me, I was somebody else. And I started to enjoy every show. Graham puts on some amazing shows. We did Tommy from The Who, we did American in Paris. I mean, we did Amadeus was a great show. So he didn't really require those of us who couldn't dance to dance a lot, but there was a lot of choreography and a lot of great music. So I started to enjoy the shows so much that every village I went to, I asked to be in as many shows as I could.
Okay, so when Graham first approached you, you didn't do like me and say, "Well, I have two left feet," or pretended to trip. You basically said, "Okay, I'm on board," right?
Yeah, I told him I was on board, probably much to his dismay. Yeah, I'm not a good dancer, and he had to
Okay.
work really hard. I think I was a thorn in his side. He was the choreographer at least three of my villages that I can remember, maybe more. And some of his shows carried over to other villages. So he was excited when he saw somebody that already knew his show. But then when he saw it was Dan Bittle, he kind of looked at me like, "Oh no," because the rehearsals were always late at night, right? At
Yes,
1 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
yeah, yeah,
And
right.
so, as a water ski instructor, we did our fair share of partying with the guests right up until that point. So, I came in not really ready to work. And so sometimes I would fall asleep and sometimes I would miss a number. And in fact, I listened to Graham's podcast just a little while ago, and he had mentioned that in one of his shows in Cancun, he knew that there were two GOs that would slip away during their number in the show and stand at the bar instead of being in their number in the show. But Graham never noticed because he was on stage at the time. And I'm pretty sure that I was one of those guys because I found every opportunity to sneak away when I could, even though I loved the shows. There were some numbers that I did not enjoy because I was out there by myself or I had to dress in drag or something that was not as comfortable as some of the other numbers.
See that this is next level thinking, Dan, because I spent 10 years in Club Med and never once occurred to me to do that, So hats off to you, sir. Respect.
Thank you.
Okay. Ingenious. Okay. Yeah, I do like how you put that, because you're working Club Med, basically you learned how to do your own hair and makeup, walk in heels, like we all have to do, right? Like at one point you're gonna be in heels, right? Like
It's definitely different than anything else I've done.
yeah, hey, this wasn't in the job description. Hey. But
Quite a
yeah.
bit wasn't in the job description, but that's the
Yeah.
unique fun part about Club Med is, you're there as a water ski instructor, but you probably spend more of your time doing other things other than water ski because you're in the shows, you're moving bleachers, you're playing trivia with the guests, you're eating dinner with the guests. There's so much that you're always doing. It was such a busy time. I really loved it. I didn't know that that's what I needed in life. Was to have every minute of my day filled, but I really got energized by that. Where I think some people, it felt like too much or felt like a job, but to me, I was being paid to be on vacation in essence.
All right. So you go up to your chief of village, Howard McCarley. You say, "Howard, I want to be a water ski GO." Instead of asking you all the questions, asking you for certificates, he basically told you to do one thing. What was that?
Yeah, the one thing he said, "You want to be a ski GO? Come with me." Because this was after I'd realized I was afraid of heights in trapeze and I wanted to stay at Club Med. And literally in that conversation, he walks me down to the water ski dock. He climbs in a boat and he says, "Drive." So I get in, I start driving the boat. He says, "Pull up to the dock and take a skier skiing." And so I went through the whole routine with him in the boat with, chief of village. And we pulled back into the dock and he said, "Okay, you're now a water ski GO." And I had a little bit of background in that, Greg. So I grew up, my parents had a boat, so I did a lot of boat driving. I did a lot of water skiing. So it wasn't like I was just jumping into something I'd never done before and I thought it would be cool. It was something that I felt confident doing, but that's how I switched from trapeze to water ski.
And at Sandpiper, you were part of the bleacher team, which I've never heard before. So you tell our listeners what the bleacher team was.
Yeah, so I've actually been back to Sandpiper since I was a GO there, and a bit of the village has moved around and changed. So at the time, the circus tent was right next to the GO building where all the GOs sleep, which is now a bunch of volleyball courts. And so we would do trapeze shows. There was a bunch of bleachers there. Well, whenever there was any other event in the village, all these big, huge metal bleachers had to be moved. And there was things going on 2 or 3 times a day. And so the sports team was always volunteered to go and move these bleachers. And we felt like we were doing this so much. Scott Duncan is one of the guys who was on that with me, and John Kiss. that we felt like we were moving bleachers more than we were doing anything else. So we went into the front office and asked them to make new name tags for us. So instead of Dan Waterski, I was Dan Waterski, and then it was Bleachers Team. And so we wore those name tags for most of the season and got a good chuckle out of it.
Okay. And you also did something interesting here I never heard of. So you do these, you organize night golf for the GMs, which I haven't heard of, but you guys did something unique in that you basically.
Yeah, there was a couple of us that a guy named Sky and a guy named Ted that were there with me, and the GMs would play night golf with glow balls. Well, we thought it would be fun to dress. We got into all black body outfits because they'd always play the night golf on a moonless night when it was really dark, and they had tiki torches on the greens. It was like a little par three. Well, we would sneak out there in the dark in these all black bodysuits, and when somebody would hit a ball, we would crawl out and cover it up or hide it, and they thought their ball disappeared. I just happened to be hiding behind a tree one time and, hit a guy's ball a little bit late as he was walking up, and he thought it was a gator because we were in Florida, and he swung his club and hit me right across the back. So I thought I was going to go to the hospital that night, but I don't know who was more scared when I screamed, him thinking it was an alligator, or me not knowing if I was going to get beat more with that golf club. So we kind of stopped doing that.
Okay. Yeah. I think you got some good knowledge from John Kiss this season, right? Basically telling you how to, something to understand or what outlook to have about Club Med, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I alluded to it earlier. You're busy. Club Med is a different world. You are on the go from 7 in the morning until about 3 in the morning, 7 days a week, no days off. So you're working on 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and it's constant movement, constant going, and doing a lot of things outside of your realm. And if you hear the negative chatter from some people, I feel like Club Med is either for you or it's not for you. Some people learn right away they don't like it and they move on, and some people become lifers or stay a long time like I did, 4 years. John had a good conversation with me. He had been in the corporate world before he came to Club Med, and he said, Danny, he goes, you can't look at this like it's a job. He goes, you got to look like you're getting paid to be on vacation. You got to think this way. He goes, look at us. We drive a ski boat. We have unlimited gas. We have 15 minutes from the time we're done teaching the guests till we have to be at the bar. That's 10 minutes of free water ski. We can get up at 5 in the morning instead of 6, and we can ski for an hour. So he really shed the light on make the best of what you have instead of looking at what you don't have, which was, no money and no time off.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But you really didn't need money. There was nowhere to spend it. When you're working 7 days a week, where are you going to spend money if you're making it anyways?
Well, some GOs did manage to, because you might, from time to time, the blacklist subject comes up on this podcast, or if you remember the blacklist. Yeah. So, some GOs actually do find a way to spend the money. And wind up owing money when they leave. But you're right. Yeah. Because if you're really careful, right, there's nothing really to spend it on. As long as you arrive with your own Perio and toothpaste, you're good, right? I mean, what else?
That's it. And yeah, you can, if you're going to spend your money, it's on more beer or more equipment. And, being a water ski guy, Club Med had a contract with Connolly Skis. So if I wanted to buy my own personal equipment or more equipment, I got it at a deep, deep discount. So that's usually what I did with my money at the end of the season. I would buy a new water ski, a new barefoot suit, some ropes, handles that I would then take to my next village.
All right. So 95, 96. So after Sandpiper, you go to Copper Mountain. You're with one of my favorite chiefs, my first chief, Jean-Pierre Grand. So, and you become a ski instructor, but was it your idea to go to Copper? Or did you fill out a dream sheet? That was your first, second, third choice?
No, it really wasn't. While I was in Sandpiper, I mean, you meet so many great people at Club Med that become lifelong friends. And one of those guys was Scott DePalma, and he's actually the one who taught me how to barefoot water ski. So he wasn't even a ski instructor. He had come in, I think, on vacation or to help out for a couple of weeks and encouraged me to barefoot water ski when I'd first learned to get on the water ski team. And as the season was finishing, he had been a snow ski instructor at Copper. And he said, Dan, you really need to come and be a snow ski instructor. You're from Colorado. You know how to ski. Come on out and do it. So he really encouraged me to go and try out and do the stage for snow ski. So I really wasn't quite sure what I was getting into, having never taught ski, but having grown up, skiing since I was 5 years old. So I requested that. And I probably, with Scott DePalma's help, I ended up getting invited to the village for the ski stage, which happened about 2 weeks prior to the village opening.
Yeah. And there's probably like about 22, 25 of you trying out for 8 spots, right?
Correct. Yeah. It was very competitive. But I believe, I am not the greatest skier in the world. I'm a great teacher and I'm a great GO. And I think that held a lot of weight because when you're at a ski village, a lot of the guys that are trying out at this stage are full-on ski instructors, but they're not GOs. They refuse to do shows at night. They refuse to sit at dinner with guests, right? To them, it's a job. It's not being a GO. And so I believe that, through the stage, I did well enough teaching, but did really good with the GO stuff that I ended up getting one of those 8 spots. So I was super excited. But Club Med does it right? They're not going to bring us in there and have us try out and then just send us home. Those of us that were GOs prior, there were some that did not make the ski team to be instructors. They gave them jobs in the mini club or at the bar or something like that. So they still got to stay at the village and be a GO for the season. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. And after your season in Copper, 96, you find yourself in Sonora Bay with the great Mike Coltman as a chief. They don't really need you at Waterski, so you have to learn how to windsurf and sail. Is this right?
It is, yeah. So when I was in Sandpiper, I met a girl who was also a GO, and we became boyfriend and girlfriend, and we went to Copper Mountain together. And then when we were leaving Copper, she wanted to go to Sonora Bay. And so when we arrived there, Mike Coltman knew I was a water ski instructor, but he only had one spot. And my girlfriend at the time she was a front desk person and they did not need a front desk person. So Alistair was the chief of ski and he recruited her to work on the ski team and work on the dock. And my buddy Scott DePalma, who got me to Copper, was the chief of the beach in Sonora Bay. So he said, Dan, come on over on the beach and work with me. And he said, you're going to be a windsurf and sailing instructor. And I kind of looked at him and said, I've never done either, but I'll learn.
Okay. Yeah, it's true that because I windsurf. So it's actually true that you don't have to know how to windsurf to teach windsurf because, the vast majority of guests won't get it in a week. It takes a very long time, like at least 3 months to get going where you want to go. But I assume that when on your off time, were you actually taking a board out by your own and trying to come back?
Greg, unfortunately, I wasn't. I was very not interested in windsurfing or sailing.
Okay. Okay.
I enjoyed the beach, being part of the beach. The beach team does everything from windsurf, sailing, snorkeling, kayaking. So I really, fell in love with that kind of stuff. So I focused more of my efforts since there was 5 or 6 of us on the beach. I did teach a few dry land lessons for windsurfing and sailing, but because everybody else on that team was so good at it, I just kind of took a back seat and focused on the other things. So I never really learned how to windsurf, even though I tell people I was a windsurf instructor. If you ask me to get on a board now, I'm pretty sure I could stand up on it, but not go anywhere.
Okay. Hey, it's honest. Okay. All right. Well, what else? I believe Scott DePalma also encouraged you to get PADI certified. Like he gave you the time to do this.
Yeah, another great, story for the camaraderie and the friends that we build, right? I'd now worked with Scott over 2 or 3 different villages, and him being in charge of the beach and me not really taking to the windsurf and sailing. This was still at a time when Club Ed, you didn't have any days off, but we had some slow weeks where there were less guests and not a lot of people doing kayaking or snorkeling. And so Scott asked me if I was interested in getting certified. He said, if you want to take 3 days off, you can go through the 2 days of class and the 1 day open water, and you can get certified right here while you're working. So he actually gave me 3 days off in the middle of 1 week in the season to get PADI certified, and been a scuba diver ever since.
Okay. Interesting. And after this season, I find this fascinating because I don't know many GOs. Well, you'd be the only one I know. You actually wound up going back to Arizona, getting a job at the Arizona Club Med sales office, selling these vacations. And I thought, well, this is perfect because you probably were in a lot of the villages that people wanted to go to, and you could speak firsthand about the experience, right?
It was great. Yeah, didn't know I was going to do that. Didn't know Club Med Sales was there, but as I was looking for jobs, saw it, went and applied, and they hired me right away because of my village experience. But I quickly learned that it's difficult because I knew 3 or 4 villages and I knew my vision of those. And so I could sell people on the good or the bad. And I was supposed to really be quick to get people, tell a little story, explain Club Med a little bit, but get on to the next person so we can sell the next, week vacation. And so I spent a lot of time talking and less time selling, but I did it for about 4 or 5 months. And after really sharing that with the people that worked there and with, potential GMs and GMs that had been before, I really just decided, okay, I know I came back to what we call the real world, but I miss Club Med. So I ended up quitting that job and requesting to go back and ended up getting a job in Punta Cana.
Right? It's crazy because you're talking about you're in sales, you're talking and promoting the village, you're talking about it, but the whole time you're talking about it, you're talking yourself into going back, right?
It's exactly
You're like,
100%.
why did I leave? It was so great there.
Well, at the time, so I think there was a little sting for it too for me because most of the people who were in Club Med sales had never been to a Club Med, but what they did as part of their program, they'd go through their 3 or 4 months of training, and then they would send them to a club for 3 or 4 days so they could see what the experience was like so that they could better sell it, right? But they wanted to make sure you were in it for the long haul. So it was usually a 3 or 4 month stint before they sent you to a village. And so a lot of the people I was working with, since I was new, were also new salespeople. They had never been to Club Med, so they were really wanting to hear all of the stories of Club Med. And so just that, talking about the stories and the people and the life, I just really felt that pull to get back into Club Med.
Before we go on, I forgot to shout out Mark Kelton. So Mark Kelton referred me 3 names. So Mark Kelton, friend of the podcast, okay, big time ski instructor, referred me to you, Dan. So thank you for saying yes, and thank you to Mark Kelton. Appreciate it a lot, Mark. Thank you. Or else I would not be here talking to Dan and getting.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I'm glad you mentioned my name. It's exciting for me, and I appreciate it.
You must have made quite the impression on him, sir. All right. So we realize you want to go back. All right. They send you to Punta Cana about around 97. I think you're there. And you do a bit of combo mini club water ski. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. So when I had decided I wanted to go back, it was the middle of a season. So for those listeners that don't know, Club Med used to go in 6-month seasons. It was April to October and October to April, right? So they crossed over the new year. And so I ended up going in the middle of a season. So I was an addition, a replacement for somebody else. And when I wanted to go back, I told them, I don't care where I go. I don't care what I'm doing. Here's what I've done in the past. I just want to get back to Club Med. So they brought me in there as a mini Club G.O. The chief of village or chief of sports at the time quickly learned that I had been a ski instructor somewhere else. And he said, I really need you over at the water ski team. So I think I probably only spent maybe a month with the kids in the mini club, 6 and 7-year-olds, and moved right to water ski.
Now, was this, I guess, time of the year, summer or winter that you were doing
at Club Med? It felt like summer year round, Greg. Now I know you live up in Canada.
Yeah.
I live in Florida. So for me, it felt like summer the entire time. I think the coldest day I ever had was in Cancun, and it might have got down to about 78 degrees. So I couldn't tell you if it was winter or summer.
I guess I was more asking because they don't offer, when I was in Punta Cana, there was no water ski. So you know how winter, say in the Bahamas, is really choppy for water ski, then they kind of they stop it for winter and take it up in summer. So I was just curious, since they don't offer water ski anymore there, is it maybe because during the winter it's just too rough,
Well, I think I didn't have any rough seas, so whatever time of the year, it's nice and flat on that side of the island. What a beautiful island it is. Palm trees growing right out of the beach. There was a shipwreck just offshore in the reef. That being said, that's where we taught water ski, in the reef. So there were little channels within the reef where you would tow the skiers. So the problem was, if you were not a skilled driver, you would run that boat right into a reef, because the reefs are only six inches out of the water, but there was channels where you could drive. So boats were constantly getting ruined. And me having that experience of driving a boat before, they brought me in as a water ski instructor. But I heard that they shut down the water ski there very shortly after, because boats were just getting destroyed. Engines were getting destroyed by drivers not paying attention, or people skiing outside the wake when they're not supposed to, and crashing on the reef.
Yeah, exactly. And after this season, you go to Eleuthera. Now, we've had a few GOs from the season on, and I know because I think you're here probably with one of your favorite chiefs, Kenton Smith, correct?
Yeah, he was. I mean, all of my chief of villages were great, but I had a special connection with Kenton right off the bat. He was the first chief of village that really did a lot of the shows with us. I mean, Howard McCarley did a lot of the stage shows, so I got a foray into that when I was in Sandpiper. But Kenton was a big time water skier, and me being on the water ski team with my good buddy John Kiss and another good friend of ours, Bama, Mike McDowell, Kenton wanted to be in all the ski shows, and so he really integrated himself with the ski team and was basically like another one of us. So that kind of made that brotherhood with my boss more like a friendship and less like a boss and employee type relationship.
Yes, and also on your ski team was Salvatore Girantana, I think, right?
Well, Salvo did. Yes, Salvo, one of my favorite people in the world. I mean, people know him as Salvatore or Salvo or Fabio. He had long, beautiful hair, and he wore, vests with the sleeves cut off and his great tattoos on his arms, and just a character from Sicily, Italy. And one of my favorite things about Salvo when I first met him is through conversations, I found out this guy speaks 13 languages. And I thought that was just so impressive because I speak English. So
and not well. No.
and just enough to get by. And
Yeah.
and it's funny because we wear the name tags at Club Med, and at the time they had little stickers, and you would put stickers on there for all the languages you speak. And I remember learning that from Salvatore because his name tag was completely covered in stickers, and he even said, "Hey, I speak some languages that they don't have stickers for." And so I got the bright idea. Well, mine just has an American flag on it. That seems not really cool. I don't seem as impressive. So I went and got an American flag, an Australian flag, a Canadian flag, an English flag. So I had 4 flags on my name tag, but they were all English speaking countries.
Nice. All right. Now let's hear your jellyfish story because I like to hear it because there's a phenomena at Club Ed where sometimes the seas are so rough that the GM like absolutely wants to go out sailing or windsurfing, and it's like a terror. The waves are just want to eat you. In this case, you had a GM that wanted to water ski, right?
Yeah. So in Eleuthera, the water ski and sailing and windsurfing is on the other side of the island. It's a very narrow island in Governor's Harbor. So the main village is on a pink sand beach. And then you had to take a bus ride over to the other side of the island, which is volcanic rock. And so as the tides change or the weather changes, you get very rough seas. Or since it was in a harbor, there were days where the jellyfish would be so many that you couldn't imagine putting your hand in the water without getting stung. You could see them everywhere. But when GM is on vacation and they want to ski and they take that bus over to the water ski dock and there's nobody in line, they're very excited because normally there's 140 people waiting to ski. This guy rolls up, he's all by himself, there's nobody out there, he's super excited. We walk him to the end of the dock and we show him all the jellyfish. We say, "We're closed because of the jellyfish." And he said, "No problem, they don't bother me." We adamantly tried to tell him don't ski, but he really wanted to go. So luckily we had a boat tied up to the dock. We didn't have to swim out to get a boat. So we suited him up. He was really excited. The boat pulls away from the dock. He slides into the water and immediately starts screaming, howling. He was getting zapped by all these jellyfish. And it probably took him 4 or 5 minutes to get out of his ski, climb up the ladder and get back out. And by the time we got him on shore, he had welts all over his face, his arms, everything. Like, luckily these weren't like deadly jellyfish, but enough to really put a sting into you. And it was kind of like I told you so without having to say I told you so. He learned the hard way. And so for us, that was absolutely hilarious that, hey, if you really want to go, we've told you the dangers, but here we go, because we knew he wasn't in danger of getting really hurt, just getting stung.
But he went with you guys like to dinner, right? That same night, right?
Oh
Like it was
man,
all
this guy loved the fact that we said, "Hey, you're our guest. We're going to make you happy. Do what you want." For the rest of the week, this was early on in the week. He had dinner with us every night. He sought us out to have dinner. He came to ski a bunch. Really great guy. I wish I could remember his name, but he really enjoyed it. He took it very lighthearted and had a great time.
Yeah, only someone who said jellyfish don't bother me have never been stung in their life, because you just need to get stung once to know how painful. I think jellyfish and scorpion are the two like the hardest. Like I've been hit in Club Med by those bites. Okay.
Well, that's interesting you say that. So I've been hit by jellyfish, got a scorpion in Sonora Bay. It was inside my boot. Since that day, I shake my boots before I put them on, just in case there's a scorpion in there. My foot swelled up so bad we had to cut the boot off of my foot.
Yeah.
And but for me, the worst pain was also in Sonora Bay, where we gassed up the boats. You had to get out of the boat in waist deep water, walk to shore, grab the gas line, and carry it back out to the boat. You kind of moored the boat a little bit, and it was surrounded by stingrays. And we were told to shuffle our feet when we gassed the boat. Well, one day I forgot, and a stingray got me right in the ankle, and it felt like someone shoved a pencil right through my ankle. That was the most pain I had ever felt in my life. And then within 5 or 6 minutes of walking up onto shore, one whole side of my body went numb and I just started throwing up on the sidewalk. So luckily Club Med has doctors and I got a shot right away and got through it. But for me, stingrays are the worst pain.
Yeah. Yeah. I never had the pleasure of that one. So knock on wood. Yeah.
Call yourself blessed. Don't do
Yeah.
it. Shuffle your feet when you're
Yeah,
on stingrays.
the scorpion was worse than the jellyfish, but yeah, I've heard that the stingray is no picnic. Okay. Okay. All right, so we go to after Luther, we go to Cancun, which turns out to be your last season with Kevin Batt. You're at Waterski. You take over some of your Eleuthera antics to Club Med, I think, to promote the Waterski show. You guys would jump out of that window, which is now closed in the restaurant, right? I think.
Is it now closed? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there were windows on one side of the restaurant that actually went out into the lagoon. And part of the Barefoot Waterski show, John Kiss would take a handle up in this window and he would throw it down to the boat and we would pull away and he would do what's called a dock start, but from a 2-story window down into the lagoon. And it was a really fun number for water ski. So to promote the Barefoot Waterski show, which happened on Wednesdays, Tuesday night, the barefoot team, the water ski team, we'd get in our barefoot suits and we'd have, one of our guys standing at that open window. So we knew exactly which window we were supposed to go to and which one was open. And we would run through the restaurant yelling, barefoot show tomorrow, barefoot show tomorrow. And we would all run up onto the table and leap out this window into the darkness, right? Because it was nighttime. And, very scary for some people, but then everyone learned quickly that that was where the lagoon was. And that's where the water ski show was the next day. So kind of a unique way for us to promote the barefoot show.
And also, since we're on the topic of dinner and restaurant, you guys would have some game where, when the GMs would ask you your job, you guys would make up fake jobs?
We would. So Club Med had a unique thing. I've been back to Club Med on vacation a few times to different villages, and it's not always the same as it was when I was there as far as dinners. When I was a GO, all the tables were round, tables of 8. So when you walked into the restaurant, they would sit 6 GMs with 2 GOs. Sometimes you'd get a third GO, but very rarely. So every meal you would always eat with the guests. And if you had a guest invite you to dinner, you would be able to sit with them, but you were not allowed to request a table as a GO. You couldn't say, hey, I know that guy. Can I go sit over there with them? Or I know these people. They had to walk in with you and request for you to sit with them in order to get that to happen. So when you're sitting at these tables of 8, you can imagine after 4 years of Club Med, a lot of these people are there for the first time. It's their first Club Med experience, and they're meeting all these people from around the world who all have different amazing jobs. And so a lot of the same questions come out of the GM's mouth. There's constantly asking, where are you from? What do you do here? How many languages do you speak? And to get over the monotony of that and answering the same question, we kind of started this in Eleuthera and carried it to Cancun because a lot of us that were in Eleuthera came to Cancun. Howard McCarley recruited John Kiss and Bama and me and Scott Smith to come to Cancun. It was the last season they were doing it before the renovation. So he wanted a team of solid, experienced GOs. And so he recruited all of us. But we would sit at dinner and we played this game where if a GM asked, let's say, John, hey, John, what's your job here? Instead of letting John answer, one of us would immediately pipe in and make up a story, and then John would have to run with it. So if somebody said, John, what's your job here? I would immediately pipe up and say, well, do you love all the beautiful palm trees and flowers and bushes, like those purple flowers on the pathway walking in here? And the GM would naturally say, oh, yeah, those are beautiful. I said, well, that's John's job. He's the village arborist. You got to ask him about anything. And they would start peppering him with questions about different flowers and different plants. And naturally, he knew nothing about it, but he had to roll with it. That was our game. You had to go with it as long as you could until it was too laughable and you knew what you weren't talking about. So that became like a dinner topic that a lot of people started picking up, to where by Thursday or Friday, most of the GMs knew not to ask that question because they were going to get a false story from just about anyone at the club.
Okay. Right now you did the show Hair. Was this also Graham Maxwell? Was he here?
This was Graham. Absolutely. What a great show.
Well, tell me about
the shows
this,
Graham did was fun, but we could make them a little more fun.
Tell me about this Jay guy. What happened during this show? What did you guys do?
So Jay Walsh was a tower of a man, really good guy. He actually was at my wedding when I got married years later, but we used to stay friends with a lot of these guys. Bama, who I worked with, he was the best man at my wedding. So these friendships you make last a lifetime. But Jay, I would say he's 6'4", 6'5", very tall guy. So in one of the numbers for Hair, Jay had a number where he would hold another GO above his head in the middle of the stage while a bunch of us danced around. And I couldn't even, I want to say it's the actual song Hair. And the costume designers were so great at Club Med. They had amazing, amazing outfits. Well, the costumes for this one were these leather armbands with tassels that hung down, probably 15 or 20 tassels on each arm, all about 12 inches long. And it was all made of leather. Looked really cool when you were dancing around and swinging your arms and flailing. Well, we quickly learned we could make this number fun because Jay couldn't do anything to protect himself while he was holding someone over his head. So as 4 or 5 of us danced by him, we would swing those armbands and basically put welts all over his body, because this was a number where he was shirtless. And so by the end of the number, the crowd could see that he got whipped by everybody that danced by him, because there were welt marks all over his chest and his back. Funny enough, Graham would tell us to stop doing it. Jay would tell us to stop doing it, but somehow we managed to get that in on almost every time we did hair, which was at least once a week.
Good for you guys.
To me, that is a memory that I laugh out loud every time I think about it, and I'm sure Jay's probably the only one that doesn't.
And every time you hear the song Hair, no doubt, right?
Yes, I start thinking about bouncing around on stage and whipping somebody with tassels.
Okay, sir, we're coming almost to the end of this interview. I just want to know, like, is there anyone we have not mentioned that you'd like to shout out, enjoyed working with?
If I could remember everybody's name, I'd probably have a list 200 or 300 long, because you work with so many great people. I had the pleasure of working with a lot of the same guys at a lot of the villages, just being the fact that, I did a lot of time as a water ski instructor, and there were only certain villages that did water ski. And the fact that I only speak English, I was confined to the American zone, which was, North America and the Caribbean and Mexico. So I wasn't allowed to go to other villages because I didn't speak French or Spanish. So I kind of was around a lot of the same guys, and you've heard a lot of their names. The guys that made big impacts on my life: John Kiss, Bama, Salvatore, Scott DePalma, Scott Duncan, Scott Smith. I mean, these are guys that I worked a lot with. Salvatore, him and I had a blast. Never ended up in the same exact service. He was always like sailing or windsurf when I was water ski or something else. But we spent a lot of time together and became dear friends. So I kind of have hit most of those people. There was another guy who was my chief of sports in Sonora Bay, Carlos, I want to say Medicio is how he says his name. Bodybuilder, fantastic human being. He was a really dear friend of mine that I worked at Sandpiper, Copper Mountain, and Sonora Bay with. So I guess he's another guy I would give a shout out to.
And is there anything you miss about Club Med? I mean, I know you still go, but is there anything that you find that you miss when you reminisce?
Greg, there's a lot to miss about Club Med.
Yeah, right.
I think that Club Med, I laughed every day. I don't do that now. There's too many responsibilities. I mean, at Club Med, I didn't have to pay bills, and I didn't have homework really, right? You live day to day, and not too many people wake up, look out their window, see the beach, see the sun, and go, "Oh darn, it's sunny again today, and I have to go drive a ski boat with people who are on vacation and having fun." So I think what I miss the most is the no real stress there. You have little bits of stress in day to day, or if things don't go right, but all in all, every day was a great day. The friendships, absolutely. I've heard other podcasts that you have done just recently, now that I'm new to podcasting and listening to it. But the friendships you build last forever, even more so than my fraternity friendships from college or high school friendships. These are men and women that I keep in touch with, or just touch base with occasionally. Facebook was massive to that. I got back in touch with so many GOs once Facebook came around and you could connect with people. So those friendships, I really miss that, because it's not as easy to make those friendships nowadays. And I'm actually searching more for like-minded people in my small little world that I live in now, where at Club Med, I was searching out the people who had a completely different life and different story than me, because I was fascinated to hear about where they came from and what they did. And then, of course, the locations and travel. Loved living on the beach, loved traveling, still travel as much as possible to this day with my family. Go to Club Med on vacation every once in a while. But I really, the locations were fantastic. Beautiful beaches, beautiful sunsets, and just a lot of fun.
Yeah, even when you were in Thailand, teaching English, you still found time to visit one of my favorite people, Ryan Leach, at the Club Med Phuket, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my wife and I, a year after marriage, we decided to sell everything we owned and go do something big, right? Before we had kids. And so we chose to teach English. And so we started researching, and we found that we could actually go to Thailand and take a class, a TEFL class, teaching English as a foreign language. And then they would place you in a school. So we thought, let's go to Phuket, Thailand, and let's teach English. Had no clue there was a Club Med there, right? I'd been at Club Med all those years, never knew there was a Phuket Club Med. But as you mentioned in my intro, we arrive in Phuket to learn how to teach English. We're American, and our instructor was from Germany. So I thought that was kind of a laugh. We learned how to teach English from a German guy, but had lots of time off while we were in Phuket and found out there was a Club Med just down the road. So we visited Ryan Leach. I had never worked with him for a full season, but he was in Sonora Bay with Mike Coltman when I was there. He was in Sandpiper. I think he stopped in at Copper. So got to know him really well. And so we stopped into his village, had lunch. He walked us around, and we just kind of spent an afternoon there and really enjoyed it. But we were new to Thailand at the time, so we were eager to get out and explore more of the area instead of staying at a club. So we did not stay. We just went in for a day. But really beautiful village, and a fantastic person Ryan is.
Did anything that you learned in Club Med help you in later jobs?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I was not an extroverted person when I first went to Club Med. I was in a fraternity in college, but still like a small group of people. I wasn't good at talking in groups, and I also got really intimidated by people who were powerful or much smarter than me, which is really easy to be much smarter than me. And so, I would get starstruck and things like that. Well, Club Med kind of taught me that everybody is kind of the same. Everybody has fun, everybody laughs. And I got to meet some very influential people, some amazing people, heart surgeons to janitors, and found that everybody is kind of the same at their core. They're on vacation, they want to have a good time. So I got really comfortable talking to people, and I didn't get nervous speaking around groups or walking up and meeting new people, kind of becoming the straw that stirs the drink, my wife says. When I walk into a room, there's no strangers in a room when I walk into it. Within the first 5 minutes, I know everybody. But one of my first real jobs coming out of Club Med, I had never done any sales or internet advertising, and I went for an interview for this company called Alta Vista to sell internet advertising. They were a search engine like Google, but before Google came around. And I probably spent 2 or 3 hours with the guy who was going to be hiring, and we talked about everything we could and not much about the job, because my resume said Club Med on there, and he had been to Club Med and wanted to know everything about it. So our conversation was 2 hours of Club Med stories. And at the end of that, he said, the job is yours. And that was my first interview for a real job. And I got it because I was a G.O.
Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Not bad. It was a great job for 4 years. And then Google came around and basically wiped it out. So for those of you that are looking for Alta Vista search engine, it is no more. Google was the big dog and came in. When Alta Vista was there, it was Yahoo, Lycos, and MSN were the big search engines.
Yep. Oh, you're part of history then now, right?
There you go.
Vista. All right. Actually, let's do. You got time for just one more Club Med story before we go?
I do, Greg.
Give me one from Cancun there with Kevin Batt, please.
Yeah, so Kevin, another fantastic chief, right? Like I know you had said, do you have a favorite chief of village? Pretty much all of them are great. Kevin, I really enjoyed it. Cancun was my last season, and Kevin was a great chief. And I think Kevin always tried to get people out of their element, right? So him knowing that me and some of the other guys on the ski team spoke only English and never made an effort to speak French or anything else. Cancun had a lot of French guests that would come, and it would dress up really fancy at lunchtime. And Kevin would bring a group of French people down as we're coming in for our lunch break. And he would say, Dan, I would like you to take these guests out on a lagoon tour, because Cancun has a lagoon on one side where we taught water ski and the ocean on the other side. So it's kind of on a peninsula. And really just wanted me to drive him around. But I think in the back of his head, he may have been looking to stump me a little or challenge me to, hey, maybe Dan will learn some French, or let's bring some culture into his life. Unbeknownst to Kevin, I loved this, right? You're not messing with my lunch hour. I'll go out and do some more. And I would take these guests around the corner, and there was a bar I knew I could get to with the ski boat. And I would take them, I'd fill them full of good Mexican food and drinks and margaritas and such. And we would come back laughing hysterically, even if I didn't understand what they were saying, or some of them didn't understand me. And I could always see a little, almost a frown on Kevin's face, like, that didn't go as I planned. I wanted Dan to learn French or be more cultured, and he's bringing them back more like G.O.s. So the lagoon tours became one of my favorite parts of working in Cancun. I got to do those at least once a week. It wasn't always with the French guests, but that was really neat to take them to restaurants or bars by boat, because it was an experience they didn't get to do. But I think it started off with more of a culture experience that Kevin was trying to get me on, and I turned it into a party.
You still remember any French words from your time there?
Oui.
There you go. See, that's all you need to know. Okay.
It's really embarrassing, Greg, because I had a roommate in Punta Cana, I believe, who was from Brazil, and he only spoke Portuguese when he arrived, and within 4 months he spoke 4 or 5 languages. If you want to learn another language, you just have to immerse yourself in it, is what I'm told. Sit down with people from other countries and make the effort. But for me, I learned at the time when I was a ski instructor and a trapeze instructor, I could teach my sport in about 4 or 5 languages. Simple things, bend your knees, keep your arms straight, hold on, let go, but nothing too fancy, no conversation.
Okay. Nice. Oh, Dan, it's been so amazing of you to take the time to share your story with us. It's been so good. I
I'm
really
so
want to
grateful
thank
you
you
had me
for
on today,
that.
Greg.
Oh no, I'm honored and so glad you said yes. And we get to hear your story, and I'm sure a lot of people are gonna, people from those mid '90s, mid '90 geos. There's a lot of them out there, so those episodes tend to be well favored too. So I really want to thank you for sharing it. We both started Club Med in the same year, so it's too bad we never got to cross. We came close there when you were in Eleuthera. I was in Columbus Isle, but we came close.
It is amazing how many ex-geos are out there, and so many of us didn't cross paths, and so many of us worked 3 or 4 or 5 seasons together. Just
Yeah,
amazing how that ends up.
yeah, oh, yep. Well, everyone, seasoners, that was the amazing Dan Bittle. I want to thank you again, Dan, for being here, and really, really, from the bottom of my heart, thanks so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you to everyone who's listening.
Yes, that was the Dan the Man, Dan the Tan Bittle, and we'll see you all next week, everyone. Bye. Say bye, Dan.
Bye.